He was history's most dangerous man, yet almost no one talks about him. Not because he lacked influence, power, or intellect, but because his danger was not obvious in the conventional sense. It was subtle, insidious, woven into the very fabric of human behavior and societal structure. Imagine a figure who could shape societies, manipulate perceptions. Imagine a figure who could shape societies, manipulate perceptions, and trigger profound shifts in the collective consciousness without ever holding a crown or leading armies in battle. His weapons were ideas, strategies, and an uncanny understanding of human nature. To truly understand why he was so dangerous, we must delve into the intersections of psychology, neuroscience, and history itself. Human history is often told as a chronology of kings, wars, and revolutions, but beneath the surface, it is the story of cognition, perception, and adaptation. Every empire rises and falls not only because of economics or military strategy, but because of how the human brain responds to stress, fear, novelty, and information. Our brains are remarkable energy systems, constantly processing signals from our environment, filtering threat from opportunity, constructing narratives that allow us to navigate a complex world. Now imagine a person who could send signals into this system, ideas so potent, so finely tuned to the vulnerabilities of perception and belief, that entire communities, nations, and even empires could shift in response. This man was not simply a manipulator of people, he was a manipulator of cognition itself. Consider the concept of perception as the primary interface between reality and consciousness. Humans rarely experience the world objectively. What we call reality is mediated through our senses, filtered by biases, heuristics, and past experience. Historical events are interpreted, amplified, or muted according to collective perception. He understood this principle intuitively. He could anticipate how individuals and groups would respond to uncertainty, to stress, to perceived threats, and exploit it with surgical precision. History is full of figures who used brute force, coercion, or charisma, but his danger lay in his ability to make people act against their own immediate interests without realizing it. It is one thing to conquer land. It is another to conquer the mind. Neuroscientifically, what he wielded were the levers of cognitive vulnerability. The human brain, when faced with ambiguity, defaults to pattern seeking. It constructs narratives to resolve uncertainty. He would introduce subtle signals, rumors, symbols, carefully crafted messages that triggered these pattern-finding circuits. The result was collective action that appeared spontaneous but was in fact orchestrated. In this sense, he was a master of emergent behavior. Small perturbations introduced into the network of society could cascade into massive systemic shifts, much like a tiny disturbance in a neural network can lead to a seizure or sudden insight. What is particularly striking is that his actions often mimicked the adaptive mechanisms of human evolution. Stress, fear, and uncertainty are signals that have historically helped humans respond to danger. Yet he could invert this system. He transformed the very mechanisms designed to protect society into tools that destabilized it. He weaponized the brain's default settings. But unlike tyrants who rule through overt force, his influence was invisible. He rarely appeared in public. He did not lead armies with banners or slogans. Instead, he understood the architecture of influence, the channels through which ideas flow, the nodes within society most susceptible to amplification, the feedback loops that could escalate minor events into full-scale crises. Social systems, much like neural networks, contain highly connected hubs. Disrupting a hub can reverberate through the system, triggering widespread change. He could identify these hubs intuitively, community leaders, opinion shapers, scholars, merchants, and target them with subtle interventions. Each action was calculated to maximize systemic effect while minimizing personal exposure. History often underestimates such figures because they leave no traditional markers, no battles, no treaties, no monumental constructions. Yet the traces of their influence are embedded in shifts of policy, culture, and collective behavior. He exemplifies what modern complexity science identifies as a hidden influencer, an agent capable of producing large-scale change through minimal, well-placed interventions. The philosophical implications of this are profound. If a single mind, leveraging understanding of cognition and social dynamics, can steer the trajectory of entire societies, what does that say about free will, agency, and the narratives we construct about history? Are historical events truly the result of collective choice, or do they sometimes reflect the manipulations of individuals who understand and exploit the brain's wiring? To understand his psychology, we must examine the interplay of empathy, calculation, and insight. He possessed an extraordinary ability to model other minds, to simulate responses, to predict behavioral patterns across time and context. In modern terms, he had what cognitive scientists call high-level theory of mind, combined with exceptional executive function. The capacity to plan, foresee consequences, and adjust strategies dynamically. Psychologically, he thrived in uncertainty, treating ambiguity not as a stressor, but as a resource. Where most humans experience anxiety in the face of incomplete information, he found opportunity. He leveraged the collective discomfort of ambiguity, amplifying it to generate behavioral shifts that aligned with his objectives. This is a lesson in human systems thinking. The most subtle forces often drive the largest outcomes. In a society, information is energy, and perception is the medium through which it flows. By modulating perception, what people believe to be true, urgent, or necessary, he could redirect societal energy without ever raising an army. Consider the historical paradox. The more dangerous someone is, the less visible they often are. Military leaders parade, politicians campaign, revolutionaries rally. He operated invisibly, a ghost in the network, yet his consequences rivaled those of empires. Historians overlook such individuals not because they are unimportant, but because their methods evade traditional metrics of influence. They are a reminder that history is not only about the tangible, but also the informational, the cognitive, the psychological substrate that underlies every event. Take, for instance, one campaign where he subtly destabilized a ruling council. He did not issue threats. He introduced carefully calibrated doubts, leveraged interpersonal rivalries, and exploited systemic inefficiencies. Over months, minor conflicts amplified into full-scale paralysis, allowing a new paradigm to emerge, one aligned with his vision. To a casual observer, it seemed as if the council failed itself. The danger was hidden in plain sight. He understood feedback loops centuries before scientists formalized the concept. Every small action had a potential multiplier effect. The human brain, when influenced correctly, acts as a conduit, transmitting signals that grow exponentially as they propagate through social networks. He could place initial conditions precisely to trigger chain reactions, a kind of applied chaos theory within human systems. Neurologically, he exploited the same mechanisms that underlie mass panic, trend adoption, and cultural shifts. Mirror neurons, social contagion, heuristic shortcuts, and emotional resonance were his instruments. Philosophically, he teaches us that the boundaries between individual agency and collective outcome are porous. A single mind, attuned to the rhythms of human cognition and society, can catalyze change far exceeding its apparent scale. But what about morality? History often judges by outcome, yet his story challenges simple ethical evaluation. He was neither purely villain nor hero. His danger lay in insight, not malice. He revealed that the architecture of society, its networks, its vulnerabilities, its default behaviors, is itself neutral. What matters is who understands it and how they act. This leads to a startling twist. The very qualities that make him dangerous also reveal the resilience of society. Each time he destabilized a system, society adapted, reorganized, and evolved. The stress he introduced acted as a forcing function, revealing weak nodes, prompting learning, and ultimately strengthening collective robustness. In other words, his apparent threat often accelerated adaptation, a paradox where danger catalyzes survival. Viewed through the lens of neuroscience, his interactions resemble a form of controlled perturbation, similar to neuroplastic training. Just as brief, targeted cognitive challenges can enhance brain function, his interventions expose societies to calculated stress, forcing adaptation. He was simultaneously destabilizing and instructive. History rarely presents such duality. Empires, leaders, and social structures are strengthened not only by growth and stability, but also by shocks that compel reassessment and reconfiguration. By exploiting vulnerabilities, he indirectly fostered resilience. His life, therefore, is a meditation on the interplay of danger and adaptation, signal and response, cognition and society. It challenges the linear narrative of power and suggests that true influence is measured less by visible, dominance, and more by the subtle shaping of collective behavior. What can we learn from him today? In an era dominated by information networks, social media, and rapid communication, the principles he intuitively applied are more relevant than ever. Information flows through society as energy, perception modulates response, and small perturbations can cascade into large-scale outcomes. Understanding this architecture allows us to appreciate both the potential for influence and the responsibility that accompanies it. Every individual is embedded in a network of cognition and culture. Actions, ideas, and signals propagate, amplified or dampened by perception and attention. The question is no longer whether influence exists, but how we navigate it consciously. He serves as a historical lens for examining the mechanisms of control, adaptation, and emergence. He also reminds us of the philosophical principle that danger and insight are intertwined. Understanding systems deeply confers power, yet it also carries ethical weight. Knowledge of the mind and society is not inherently dangerous. It becomes so only in the hands of those attuned to subtle leverage points. He was a master of that subtlety, revealing the often invisible threads that connect individual cognition to collective destiny. Consider, for instance, the modern parallels in digital systems. Algorithms, social media trends, and viral content function as modern extensions of the same principles he exploited. Minor signals can cascade into global phenomena, reinforcing the idea that perception, interpretation, and network dynamics are central to human experience. He anticipated, in essence, the information age centuries before technology provided the medium. Ultimately, his legacy is a meditation on human adaptability. Societies, like brains, are dynamic networks. They respond to stress, interpret signals, and reorganize in response to perturbation. He operated at the interface of these processes, illustrating both the fragility and resilience of collective systems. Each action he took was a lesson in the principles of emergent behavior, in how micro-level interventions can produce macro-level outcomes. His story forces us to reflect on our assumptions about history, influence, and cognition. It challenges us to ask, how much of what we consider historical inevitability is in fact the product of subtle manipulation? How many societal shifts were guided not by overt leadership but by hidden understanding of human nature? How do we recognize when our perceptions are being guided by forces we cannot see? In closing, the most dangerous individuals are not always those who wield swords or crowns, but those who understand the mind, society, and the delicate feedback loops connecting them. He reminds us that danger and insight are often inseparable. That influence is as much a matter of perception as power, and that history itself is shaped by those who understand the systems underlying human behavior. His life is a mirror reflecting both our vulnerabilities and our capacity to adapt, a lens through which we can examine the intricate interplay of cognition, society, and the unfolding of events. If history is a network of signals, then he was the rare node capable of amplifying them with precision. Reflecting on his story, we are invited to consider our own role as nodes in the ongoing network of human society. How do our ideas, actions, and perceptions propagate through the systems we inhabit? What subtle forces do we respond to, consciously or unconsciously? In exploring his life, we gain insight not only into history, but into ourselves, our brains, and the fragile, beautiful complexity of collective human behavior. His story is a quiet warning, a profound lesson, and an invitation to deepen our understanding of the interplay between cognition, society, and history. So, as you think about the systems you inhabit, the signals you send and receive, consider this: influence is rarely obvious, danger often invisible, and understanding the mind may be the most potent tool in history's arsenal. If this exploration sparked your curiosity, if you feel inspired to examine the hidden currents of history and human behavior, share your thoughts in the comments below, like this video, and subscribe to Past Lens for more journeys into the hidden, subtle, and profound layers of our past.